What players should you be keeping an eye on to be moving teams?
They're not getting a deal done. And as Stroud says, who's been covering that team forever, he's likely gone.
This year especially, there is no shortage of big-name players and superstars who are logical trade candidates given their contract statuses and current situations. Let us dive into the top 10 NFL superstars most likely to be traded during the 2023 season. Davante Adams. The Las Vegas Raiders acquired Adams in a blockbuster deal with the Green Bay Packers during the 2022 offseason. Adams wanted to play with his former Fresno State QB and Derek Carr, but the Raiders did the star wideout dirty by releasing the veteran signal caller in 2023. Adams made headlines this past offseason when he told Miran Fader of The Ringer that he and the Raiders front office don't see eye to eye on what we think is best for us right now. Yeah, not exactly a way of expressing confidence in Josh McDaniels and Dave Ziegler, huh? Given Adams is also in his 30s, one can only wonder if the Raiders are second-guessing this trade. What if the Raiders are out of playoff contention leading up to the trade deadline? And what if Adams grows more and more frustrated? This might be the time for McDaniels and Ziegler to move on from Adams before the contract becomes too much of a burden. They can get by with Hunter Renfrow, Josh Jacobs, and Michael Mayer on offense anyway, while also using precious cap space to land another star receiver or two in 2024 free agency. Look, the list of logical suitors just goes on and on. A top 5 NFL wideout doesn't hit the trade market too often. If he and the Raiders decide to split, Adams should be at the very top of the trade deadline wish list for at least half a dozen teams or so. Saquon Barkley. If Barkley has the Giants in playoff contention, then everything we say here becomes a moot point. But that is a big if in an NFC that already looks loaded with legitimate postseason contenders. Even after he helped the Giants to a playoff appearance last season, Barkley didn't even get a contract extension. Big Blue placed the franchise tag on Barkley, who wound up agreeing to a one-year deal. So if New York refused to extend Barkley after he guided them into the playoffs last year, then you'd better believe that they'll be open to trading him at the deadline. A healthy Barkley is a top 5 running back in football, and any team that doesn't have a top 10 running back in football should be seriously interested in his services. If the Giants aren't able to build off of last year's success, Barkley should be available at the right price. Seriously, how scary would he be in Buffalo or Cincinnati, Kansas City, or even Baltimore? I'm just saying. Derrick Henry. The Tennessee Titans curiously decided to not trade aging veterans in Henry or Ryan Tannehill this past offseason. Both are in contract years, and both are getting close to the twilight years of their respective careers. Tennessee at least wanted to see if they could bounce back with Tannehill, Henry, and newcomer DeAndre Hopkins. And fair enough. But what if this team continues to slip and looks nothing like a contender in the loaded AFC? Well, then you better believe that Henry will be on the trade block then. He'll be 30 next year, and there is no way that the Titans will consider giving him a long-term deal at that phase. So why not trade the two-time rushing champion rather than watch him leave in 2024 free agency? We saw the impact Christian McCaffrey made in San Francisco after coming over via trade a year ago. Henry could be that final piece for several Super Bowl contenders. And he should come at a reasonable price given his contract status and age. If the Titans aren't above 500 at trade deadline day, honestly, we would be shocked if they didn't trade Henry. Danielle Hunter. The three-time Pro Bowl defensive end was briefly mentioned in trade rumors following reports that he was unhappy with his salary. The two sides found a happy medium, with Hunter agreeing to a new one-year deal worth up to $20 million for the 2023 season. But considering that this is also Hunter's contract year, well, is it not alarming that the Vikings didn't want to give him an extension in the first place? Hunter is one of the very few playmakers on a porous Minnesota defense, so of course they'll hold on to him if they're in the playoff mix. But what if things go south quickly and the Vikings decide that they need to take a step back? May as well trade a guy with 4 seasons double-digit sacks under his belt. Hunter could fetch some nice draft capital for a team that lacks young cornerstone players outside of Justin Jefferson, and many could easily drive up quite the bidding war for their star pass rusher. Chase Young. The Washington Commanders surprised everyone when they declined the 5th-year option on Young's rookie deal. This sets them up in a lose-lose scenario, however. Either Young stays healthy and produces, and they must be ready to pay him top dollar instead of having him at a bargain price, or he disappoints and likely leaves in free agency, with Washington getting nothing in return. The number 2 pick of the 2020 NFL Draft went off as a rookie, tallying 7.5 sacks, 4 pass defenses, 4 forced fumbles, and 3 fumble recoveries. His efforts helped Washington to a surprise NFC East Division crown, the franchise's first in 5 years. Unfortunately, Young suffered a torn ACL in the midst of the 2021 season, and he played just 12 games over his sophomore and 2022 campaigns. Still, the declining of his fifth-year option is a strong indicator that Washington's confidence in Young has waned considerably. Washington could be in playoff contention leading up to the deadline and still be keen on dealing Young. You have to get something for someone who was once viewed as a generational defensive prospect, no? If he's not producing, give him a fresh start. If he is producing, either prioritize extending Young or trade him for a nice haul at the deadline. Young could at least fetch Washington a second or third round pick. Regardless of where Washington lies in the standings, Young is a hot name to follow in the trade rumor market over the coming weeks. Ryan Tannehill. Remember what we said about Derrick Henry? Much of it applies here to Tannehill, an aging veteran in his contract year that will likely be traded if the club decides that they're not suited for a postseason run. Tannehill had a remarkable first season with the Titans in 2019, winning Comeback Player of the Year honors and helping them to an AFC Championship appearance. That was followed by consecutive AFC South Division crowns, though Tannehill's sloppy playoff performances led to one-and-done outings both years. Tennessee already drafted a promising young QB in Kentucky's Will Levis with the number 33 selection, so if they're out of the playoff picture, why not give the kid a look and trade Tannehill before he leaves in 2024 free agency? Tannehill could be an enticing fit for several playoff hopefuls, including the New York Jets after losing Aaron Rodgers to injury, the Washington Commanders, and the Atlanta Falcons. And getting a mid-round pick for him would be a pretty tidy piece of work by GM Rand Carthen. Unless Tannehill turns back the clock at his 2019 or 2020 form, expect him to be on the trade block. Brian Burns. Ahead of last year's trade deadline, the Los Angeles Rams reportedly offered the Carolina Panthers a king's ransom for star pass rusher Brian Burns, 2 first-round picks, and a second-round selection. Yet, surprisingly, Carolina turned that offer down. They picked up the 5th-year option on Burns' rookie deal, but what happens if an extension isn't reached before the deadline? Can Carolina seriously consider the risk of potentially losing Burns for nothing in 2024 free agency? Not even that, though. If they get any offers close to what the Rams proposed last year, they just gotta take it. Burns is a borderline superstar, but he is not more valuable than 2 first-round picks. Plus, Carolina is still in rebuilding mode with a rookie QB in Bryce Young and a new head coach in Frank Reich. Burns is the star of their defense, but he is also replaceable. We're not talking about an Aaron Donald, Nick Bosa, TJ Watt, or Myles Garrett caliber defender here. So yes, if Carolina find themselves out of the playoff race and they're not exactly keen on extending Burns, they ought to trade him now. Even just 1 first-round pick for Burns would be a fair deal. Jonathan Taylor. Taylor sought a trade from the Indianapolis Colts earlier this offseason after meeting with owner Jim Irsay, who made it clear that an extension for the 2021 rushing champion was not in the cards. The Colts actively shopped Taylor in the weeks leading up to the regular season, with the Miami Dolphins and Green Bay Packers reportedly making big pushes for him. But the Colts weren't happy with the offers, so they held on to Taylor and placed him on the PUP list to begin the season. With the Colts in rebuilding mode, it is impossible to envision them suddenly having a change of heart and wanting to extend Taylor. And seeing how many teams could actually use him, hi there, KC, Buffalo, Miami, Green Bay, and Baltimore, a Taylor trade just seems all too likely. Not sure if the Colts will get much for an injury-prone guy playing on an expiring contract, but any compensation is better than watching Taylor walk for nothing. So as long as he's back at full strength and playing up to his usual standards, expect Taylor to finish the season in something other than a Colts uniform. Mike Evans. It was pretty telling to us that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers didn't want to extend their franchise star heading into this season. The team is clearly worried about his age, now 30, and they don't want to commit long-term to more aging veterans with a rebuild in the rearview mirror. Evans is going to get paid by somebody on the free agent market next spring, no doubt about it. But if you're Tampa, how can you justify letting Evans walk for absolutely nothing in 2024 when this annual 1,000-yard player and TD specialist promises to fetch you a nice return? At least a third-round pick, we'd guess, and heck, maybe even more. Evans has done so many wonderful things in Tampa, highlighted, of course, by that Super Bowl 55 win in year 1 with Tom Brady. But the Bucs need to prioritize the long-term picture and bid farewell to Evans now instead of in March. They can't afford to blow this opportunity to stockpile assets for the looming rebuild. Josh Jacobs. Adams isn't the only notable Las Vegas Raiders star offensive player who could be dealt this year. Keep an eye on reigning rushing champion Josh Jacobs, another star RB whose team refused to extend him earlier this offseason. A disgruntled Jacobs left for several weeks after the two sides failed to agree on an extension. The 2019 first-round pick and Alabama product eventually decided to return, signing on for the 2023 season. But if the Raiders didn't want to pay Jacobs after leading the league with 1,653 rushing yards last year, why would they agree to extend him now? When he's a year older with more mileage on his body? Yeah, not happening. If the Raiders exceed expectations early and find themselves vying for a playoff spot, of course they'll retain both Adams and Jacobs. But if things go south, as most of us expect them to, this is the prime opportunity for Dave Ziegler to stockpile draft picks for his 2 superstar offensive weapons. But which other NFL stars do you think are likely to get traded during the 2023 season? Let us know in the comments section below. If you like this video and learned a thing or two, clicking the like button helps out a ton, and hey, we appreciate it. If this is your first time coming around to TPS though, subscribing is a great idea, because we put out videos like this every single day. But as always, thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys next time.